Thank you, everyone, for hosting me. And um, as you were promised, as I was instructed, we'll keep this hour. We'll split this hour evenly between a talk and then a conversation in Q&A or just a round table conversation. Um, so the book is here's the book. The the book is about the Jewish people. It starts with the observation that for the first time in Jewish history, the Jewish nation is today split in only two locations, Israel and America in roughly equal numbers, 7 million each. Um, the book identifies the sociological, cultural, and political differences between these two Jewish populations. And it points out that in the past 40 years, these differences have produced ongoing uh, tensions and hurt feelings on both sides. The tension point that's most visible to outsiders is that American Jews have become increasingly ambivalent in their support for Israel. And so most American Jews support Israel, but it's a source of discomfort for them. Israel and Israelis embarrass them in their social circles, and they find themselves having to explain and make excuses for Israel. By contrast, the Christian right supports Israel easily and without reservations. And this is why American Jews offer Israel tons of financial support, but more muted support in their political activism and just in public. Okay, so a lot of support in private, but only measured support in public, on the street, in the press, in Congress, etc. Whereas Christian support for Israel is the opposite. Christians give less than Jews in terms of charitable giving, but they offer full-throated, unapologetic, very comfortable support in the public discourse. But the book is not pessimistic. My co-author and I think the tensions and hurt feelings between these two Jewish tribes are just a phase, not because some kind of Jewish solidarity will just provide unity and heal the rift, but because of demographic trends among American Jews that will seem to be making American Jewry more like other Jewish diasporas, which do not have these tensions and problems with the state of Israel. So that's what the book is about, and there's a link in the chat if you want more information about it. But what I wanted to talk to you about today is just one aspect of tension between these two tribes that doesn't get much print. And that is the fact that the center of the Jewish world has shifted from America to Israel, which for American Jews has been bittersweet. On the one hand, Israel has become what it's become thanks to the efforts and support of American Jews. This is exactly what they wanted for Israel and for Judaism. On the other hand, they've been eclipsed and demoted, which is an unpleasant experience. So that's what I'll focus on today. The um, the biblical origin story of the Israelites is a story of sibling rivalry. It's Isaac and Ishmael, Jacob and Esau, Joseph and his brothers. In each of these, the elder and younger brothers compete for primacy, with the younger brother, the lesser, weaker brother, prevailing after much unpleasantness, which leaves a residue of bitterness in the family. And the storyline then continues later in Jewish history, in the biblical storyline, in the rivalries and even wars between the different Israelite tribes. and then between the house of Saul and the house of David, between the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. And later, still, between the Babylonian exiles and a remnant that was left in Judea. Now, in the late 20th century, the Jewish world were concentrated in two places, Israel and North America, like I said, in roughly equal numbers. And these two Jewish populations are intimately connected by common common ethnic, religious, cultural, and historic bonds. But their relationship has changed over the course of the state of Israel's 75, 76, 77 years soon, years of existence. At Israel's birth, the American Jewish community was by far larger, richer, more secure, and more dominant in shaping Jewish culture and the Jewish religion. Today, the roles have been reversed on all these fronts. And this transition is still ongoing. This process by which the big brother accepts his relegation to the role of the younger brother, just like in the biblical storyline, it's at times unpleasant and at times leaves a residue of bitterness. Nevertheless, as with Joseph and his brothers, as with the 12 tribes, and as with the two biblical Jewish kingdoms, the common identity and common past and common circumstances of American and Israeli Jews work to heal hurt feelings and to, I don't know if to heal them, but to sustain a sincere feeling of common solidarity and mutual affection. So let's first look at the shift in terms of size, in terms of who's bigger between these two brothers. Who's the bigger brother? In terms of size. And then we'll touch on other roles that make the big brother a big brother. So at the founding of the State of Israel, the Jewish population of the United States was 6 million compared to 600,000 Israeli Jews. So a ratio of 10 to 1. Today, the two populations are of equal size, with roughly 7 million in each. So this means that over 76 years, Israel has experienced a population explosion, while American Jewry has been demographically stagnant. Israel still boasts the highest natural growth rate in the Western world, with 3 babies per woman, whereas the American Jewish community suffers from very low birth rates, roughly 1.4 babies per woman and declining. And the American Jewish community is, while experiencing very low birth rates, is also experiencing population losses due to a very high rate, very high rates of intermarriage, marriage with non-Jews, that is. Roughly 75% of non-Orthodox marriages are with non-Jews. These couples marry late, have few children, if any, and 80% of these couples do not raise their children exclusively in the Jewish faith. It's no surprise then that only 60% of these children, of their children, identify as Jews as adults. And only 30% or 25% of the grandchildren, and for the great-grandchildren, it's minimal. So as Israel's Jewish population increases by leaps and bounds, producing one of the world's strongest economies, as this demographic and economic, not miracle, but development is taking place in Israel, American Jewry has grown weaker, stagnating demographically and therefore also communally. Jewish civic organizations synagogues, Hebrew schools, and Jewish charities are struggling to maintain their memberships as American Jews integrate more thoroughly into the general population and general culture. Synagogue membership in the United States, again among non-Orthodox Jews, which is roughly 90% of them. So, I mean, 90% are non-Orthodox. So synagogue membership among non-Orthodox Jews has steadily declined for a generation, forcing many synagogues to either reduce membership fees and therefore reduce services, or to consolidate with other synagogues, including even the consolidation of Reform and conservative synagogues and day schools. Enrollment in supplemental Hebrew schools has dropped by 45%, resulting in the closure of more than a quarter of these schools in the past, roughly, was it 30 years? Yes, since the 1980s. So 40 years, excuse me. This demographic phenomenon has also reduced the political clout of the American Jewish community. Domestically, the Jewish vote has diminished in value as other larger ethnic groups have grown at a faster rate. And it's not just in America, but in Israel too. American Jews have seen their clout diminish. At Israel's founding, the charitable donations of American Jews to Israeli causes were vital to Israel's survival and success. When Israel faced annihilation in the Six Days War in 1967, American Jews donated more than $300 million during that brief crisis alone. When Israel again fought for survival in the Yom Kippur War in 1973, American Jews delivered $700 million in immediate emergency aid. In 1975, Jewish donations to Israel came to roughly $1 billion, which represented at the time 7% of Israel's gross domestic product. It was vitally important. And this gave American Jews considerable influence, a seat at the table in Israeli public life. By contrast, today, American Jews wield little or very little influence in Israeli politics. Although they donate almost $3 billion a year to Israeli causes, this now represents only 1/2 of 1% of Israel's impressive $520 billion GDP. Okay. So American Jews are no longer Israel's rich older brother who bankrolls his gutsy but impoverished younger sibling. Okay. Israel has become the successful rich brother. And there's also again, they're bigger, they're richer, and there's also been a shift in terms of who's the leader, who speaks for the Jewish people as a big brother. In Israel's early years after the Holocaust, American Jews were the largest, healthiest, wealthiest, and most secure Jewish community in the world. Israel, by contrast, was small, poor, and under repeated threats of both bankruptcy and physical annihilation at the hands of Arab armies. It was American Jews, therefore, who took the lead in advocating for Jewish refugees after World War II, lobbying for restitution for Jewish victims of the Holocaust, advocating for Holocaust remembrance, and combating Holocaust denial. Later, later in the 1960s and 70s, it was American Jews who took the lead in advocating on behalf of Soviet Jews in America's newsrooms and at the forefront of great power diplomacy. And eventually it was this effort by American Jews that moved the Soviet Union to relent. By the same token, the American Jewish community was the face and voice of Jews and of Judaism. The leading figures in Jewish art, Jewish literature, and Jewish theater and cinema were were in America. Jewish authors and playwrights and screenwriters, and there's an endless list that includes Isaac Bashevis Singer and Saul Bellow and Herman Wouk and Mordecai Richler, Philip Roth, Neil Simon, um, Woody Allen, Joseph Stein, Potok, Chaim Potok. These writers introduced Western audiences to Yiddishkeit. Yiddishkeit means the experience and culture and folklore of Jews and Judaism. Um, so these authors and screenwriters, etc., they presented timeless Jewish themes and concerns to Jewish audiences while introducing Jewish communities and characters to a larger general audience. In doing so, these writers mainstreamed Jews and Judaism by presenting the Jewish experience as an integral part of the American experience and of Western society. American Jews also took the lead in shaping Jewish culture internally within the Jewish world. Okay, so in the religious sphere, the destruction of European Jewry in the Holocaust meant that the center of gravity of Jewish learning, Jewish schools, rabbinical instruction, and Talmudic scholarship migrated from Europe to America. And in the secular sphere, Jewish theater likewise migrated from the old world to the new. So in the first half of the 20th century, the United States became one of the centers of Yiddish theater. And then in the following decades, as American Jews integrated and assimilated into American society, the number of Yiddish speakers naturally declined, and so Jewish entertainers entertained more in English. So the what's called the Borscht Belt in upstate New York became the training ground for Jewish comedy stars that again are too numerous to mention, from Jack Benny and Milton Berle and Danny Kaye to George Burns and Mel Brooks, Rodney Dangerfield, Jerry Lewis, Joan Rivers, Woody Allen, of course. So Jewish comedy, like the Yiddish theater before it, dealt with Jewish themes and concerns and shaped the Jewish brand of humor and speech. And so when these comedians advance in their careers from the Jewish circuit to bigger stages and to television, they also mainstreamed Jewish humor and made it American humor. But in the late 20th century, the demographic, economic, and cultural stature of Israeli Jewry has risen to overtake that of American Jewry. And so the younger brother, Israel, today boasts greater demographic strength, greater economic strength, a strong army, an impressive array of achievements in science, technology, medicine, agriculture, and even a remarkable footprint in literature, art, television, cinema. And this explains why Israel has become the face and voice of Jews and Judaism. It is now the state of Israel, therefore, that takes the lead in speaking for Jews around the world. When Jewish communities in France or Russia are under threat of Islamic violence, or when a foreign government offends Jewish sensibilities regarding Holocaust remembrance or Jewish religious observances, it is the Israeli foreign minister that advocates for Jews in diplomatic circles and in the world media. Likewise, the leading figures in Jewish literature are now Israelis. Now, of course, there's no shortage of prominent American Jewish authors and screenwriters and artists and comedians, but they do not, for the most part, deal with Jewish topics and themes and problems. They're American authors, American artists, comedians, etc., who are Jewish, who happen to be Jewish. By contrast, it is Israeli authors who now introduce general audiences to Yiddishkeit by touching on particularly Jewish experiences and concerns and sensibilities in contemporary Jewish life. You see this not even, but you see this, for example, with hit movies and shows like The Band's Visit, The Wedding Plan, Fill the Void, and series like Homeland, In Therapy, Shtisel, The A Word, Fauda, of course. The success of Israeli authors and shows in America indicates that the Israeli Jewish experience is now seen as the authentically Jewish experience. Whereas the American Jewish experience is by now presented and seen as generically American. American Jews live normal American lives, and their concerns and experiences are American concerns, not uniquely Jewish concerns. Israel has also taken the lead in the field of Jewish learning, with over 15,000 synagogues in Israel compared to fewer than 4,000 in the United States. The scope of rabbinical instruction in Israel far surpasses that in America. Israel is home to the largest and most numerous centers of Talmudic scholarship. And Israeli universities are without a doubt the center of Jewish scholarship on the Hebrew Bible. So in sum, the active heart of Jewish literature, television, cinema, and Jewish scholarship is now in Israel rather than America. And it's conducted in Hebrew rather than English or Yiddish. And this is, in fact, another aspect of this same process. The migration of the center of Jewish life and culture from Europe to America, and then from America to Israel, was also a shift from Yiddish to English to Hebrew. Okay, that is from European languages to the biblical language of the land of Israel. So Hebrew too used to play the role of the younger brother to Yiddish in Europe, to English in America, and to Arabic in the Middle East. But now it's reclaimed its primacy. Not only is it the native spoken language of roughly half of the world's Jewish population, but it is now also the primary language of Jewish literature, art, entertainment, and scholarship. Now, this issue of primacy and who's the older brother, who's the elder brother, who's the leader. It also manifests itself in who protects the family. In Israel's infancy, American Jews stepped up as the bigger brother to protect Israeli Jews in times of need and distress, especially in Israel's three most threatening wars. Its War of Independence in 1948, and then the Six Days War and the Yom Kippur War in 67 and 73. American Jews provided record-setting donations and also volunteered their time and talents and actively and vociferously advocated for the Jewish state in the halls of government. The beleaguered and impoverished Israelis saw American Jews as rich benefactors and powerful protectors. Again, a reliable older brother. So when Israel found itself at odds with the American State Department, which has always been cool towards Israel and still is, um, Israel often solicited the assistance of the American Jewish community to intercede on its behalf in the halls of American government. But once Israel supplanted American Jewry as the big brother with, again, a strong economy and a powerful army and self-conscious culture, it was no longer dependent on American Jews for their financial support or their political intercession. When Israel had disagreements with the US State Department, the Israeli government now felt comfortable arguing its own case to the State Department, or taking its case directly to the White House, or even to go around the White House directly to Congress. Okay, so rather than working with or through American Jewry, Israel has become its own political agent in American politics. Okay, so again, graduating from a dependent younger brother to an independent adult in its dealings with the American superpower. And beyond taking control of protecting itself militarily and diplomatically, Israel also took over the role of protecting Jews around the world. And so if in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s and 70s, American Jews saw themselves as the protectors of vulnerable Jewish populations in Europe, in Israel, and in the Soviet Union, today it is the State of Israel that plays the role of protector on the world stage. Israel's foreign ministry takes the lead in shining a light on threats to Jews around the world and pressuring or cajoling foreign governments to act. And Israeli security and intelligence services routinely cooperate with foreign governments to thwart attacks on Jews abroad and to identify and shut down illicit funding mechanisms for Islamic terrorist groups. And not only in the Middle East, but also in Europe and in North America, South America. Additionally, since the 1980s, Israel has rescued endangered Jewish communities fleeing persecution all over the world, from Ethiopia, Russia, France, Ukraine, Belarus. So Israel, as the elder brother, Israel inherited the family's homestead, the land of Israel, and it inherited all the family heirlooms, okay, all of Judaism's national treasures. So it is the face of Judaism and of Jewish life and Jewish thought and Jewish art and Jewish learning. And it is the Jews' most powerful economic, political, and military agent. So as Israeli Jews see it, they are extending a protective blanket over all diaspora Jews, from Ethiopia to Azerbaijan to France to the United States, as part of Israel's duty as the head of the family, as the elder brother. Okay, so Israel's law of return gives Jews from all over the world, as a birthright, automatic citizenship in the Jewish state whenever they choose to emigrate there. This law covers anyone with at least one Jewish grandparent, as well as his or her spouse and children, regardless of their Jewish lineage. So American Jews can therefore live a safer and more luxurious life in America, knowing that they possess this insurance policy if ever anti-Semitism threatens them here in America, as it does in France and England, for example, or Russia. So Israeli Jewry is now bigger, richer, stronger, and more culturally consequential than American Jewry. It also represents all Jewish people from all Jewish diasporas in a way that American Jewry never did. Israel is a multicultural melting pot of European Jews, Middle Eastern Jews, North African Jews, Sub-Saharan Africans, Sub-Saharan Jews, Central Asian Jews, and also American and South American Jews. Israeli Jewry is the face of world Jewry in all its historic branches and cultural variations, whereas American Jewry is kind of a monoculture of Eastern European or Central and Eastern European Jews. And when Israel was young, and when it was tiny and impoverished and weak and endangered, it was the supplicant in its relationship with American Jewry, because it was the dependent younger brother. As Israel transitioned to the role of the older brother, bigger, richer, stronger, Israel became more confident in its leadership role in the Jewish world generally, but also more confident in its leadership role or in its place in Jewish history. Okay? And in the process, Israeli Jews gradually shed their deference, their deferential and obliging demeanor and grateful demeanor towards American Jewry. And this shift in the relationship has been a difficult one for American Jews. Historically accustomed to having their concerns and advice receiving and obliging or at least respectful hearing in Israel, American Jews now often feel stung by Israelis' unwillingness to accommodate them, both on big issues like the peace process with the Palestinians, or small issues like the status of Reform Judaism in Israel. Okay? So American Jews are sincere in their attempts to save Israelis from themselves by foisting American solutions on them, okay? Foisting a land for peace solution or two-state solution to solve Israel's security problems, or separation of church and state to solve Israel's social problems. But they meet an increasingly resistant Israeli populace, which itself insists that it knows better than Americans how to organize, administer, and safeguard a Jewish state in the heart of the Arab Middle East. And so as American Jews take note of their declining demographic, cultural, and political influence in America, they notice that they have been relegated to supporting actors also in the Jewish world. And this relegation has been and still is accompanied by hurt feelings and even a tinge of resentment. Nevertheless, for the most part, American Jews have accepted that Israel has become the capital of the Jewish world, and the United States or the American Jewry demoted to a province. And in fact, many of the older generation of American Jews look on this development also with pride as their own crowning achievement. So, thank you. And let me just stop the recording so we can go into Q&A and just talk about this. I can see already the hands going up. Thanks.